Hello YouTube, this is Boston Best 0407, and in this video I'm going to be responding to Stardusk's Men Will Not Change video. And just as a disclaimer beforehand, I did say in my second or third or fourth to last video that I wasn't going to be dealing with men's rights on this channel anymore. But I did not say that I wasn't going to be dealing with gender issues. Rather, I was just going to be looking at them from a non-MGTOW, non-MRM perspective. And so with that said, I did want to address Stardusk personally in this video. And just from the outset, I wanted to also say that I do have a great deal of respect for you, Stardusk, and Barbarossa, as, if you don't mind me saying, sociologists. I appreciate your analyses and your perspectives, and I think MGTOW makes a great deal of points, and I think your theories and ideas make a great deal of points. I think you guys make good videos that I'm personally a fan of, and I appreciate a great deal. And I also want to say that you personally, Stardusk, I admire the format that you use in your videos, because seems like you do your videos on, dare I say, a low budget, and still manage to get a great deal of views. And I admire that, because I don't have a great deal of resources myself. So when I saw your videos that were like that, I thought, this is great. This guy's making videos, with this simple still and everything, and so, shit, I could do it too. So that being said, I did want to say that I think your video, and I admit that I was pretty angry or frustrated with some of the things you said in your video, so much so that when I was trying to work on the audio for this video, I did some takes that were kind of angry or a little bit more emotional. I try not to be like that in my videos. Sometimes it comes out. It doesn't come out that often, but I did one video where it did come out a little bit, and I try not to do that. But and since you did another video recently, my mood on it, or my opinion on it, calmed down a little bit. But that being said, I think that your position, or your analysis of men not changing, I think was incredibly simplistic and flawed. And this is one of the reasons why I had to separate myself from the MGTOW MRM thing, is because I think that not only are you guys missing, to a large degree, a bigger point, I think, and your analysis is being simplistic, I think you're also, really, your analysis are, in many ways, simplistic as regards, say, female nature, the nature of men or whatever. Now, the thing is, I don't think, as Barbarossa stated in one of his videos, I don't think it's really the business of men to change at this point. I think men have been doing a lot of changing, actually. And the idea that women are the more adaptable sex, which I don't know where this came from. I think it came from something Aaron Peasy said in a Man Woman Myth video. But I've never understood this, really. I don't know why people say this, because it's never been true for me. I've never noticed it in my own life. On the contrary, I tend to believe that women are more deeply conservative than men are. I think women actually, when you uncover all of the feminist, rhetoric and gender rhetoric and whatever, you find that these people are in fact deeply conservative, and have a very, very, very conservative perspective on these sorts of issues. Not even that they want to preserve them per se, but they have a very conservative view on the relations between men and women, and a simplistic view or whatever. But I think that besides that, expecting men to change is problematic. That is, being hard on men who grow up in a culture like this, with feminism and these sorts of things, expecting them to jump on the MGTOW banner immediately, I think is a little bit unfair. You have to understand that we live in a blue pill world, and when you go outside into, I don't know, have you gone outside lately? You try to talk to blue pill men about these issues, about female nature, for example, And I've done that, and I have to tell you, I mean, I've actually presented, the type of views that you and Bob Roche have been talking about, and to blue pill, various blue pill guys I know, um, and they're shocked. I was talking to my one friend about this, and he was shocked. He was actually offended by what I had to say, and felt that I was being misogynistic and sexist. And this sort of attitude, I think, really runs deep in the culture. And he told me to really, he actually suggested I distance myself from these issues, because I would never get laid. I would never, I'd never be successful, with a woman or whatever, if I was, thinking like this, that women would not want to have sex with me or something. And this is the sort of attitude that I think rules over a lot of men. But it means effectively that this idea that men are changeable is inherently untrue, because men are obviously adapting. If men have to do this, men are obviously adapting themselves to try to get laid, and men do this all the time. Men have been doing this probably for a very long time. It's why we have a modern word problem. I mean, if men weren't adaptable, we'd still be living in the Middle Ages. On the contrary, whenever you come across a matriarchal, setting today, whenever it happens, which it may not even happen that often, but when you find it, it's usually in some isolated tribal society. So this idea that men are not adaptable is completely ridiculous. I think men are by nature far more mobile than women, and this is obvious when you consider the differences in reproduction. Men are not sitting in a home, nine months out of the year waiting to have a baby. I mean, that's a very long time. 9 months is a very long time to be stuck in the same place. And I think a lot of times men don't always appreciate this. And I make a point to appreciate this, because it's really the only thing that women have over men. It's the only thing that women can hoard over men with any level of just cause. But that being said, like I said, we do live in a blue pill world. We do live in a feminist society, and the fact that men, like a perfect example of this is the whole issue of male privilege. I mean, men are still told that they are privileged in our society. I mean, it's like, and I really don't like to bring up this example, because it's gonna have the wrong connotations. But it would be like trying to reshape, white nationalism in a non-racist way and expecting white people to jump upon it. It's the same sort of thing. We live in a society where, effectively, any perspective like that would be considered to be completely out of line, completely reactionary, and just not. It would be racist, sexist, or whatever, and it would be counterproductive, and it would be against progress. And as I said when I use the term reactionary, dealing with these issues I've come to realize over the last several months, are an inherently reactionary position. That is, you cannot deal with any issues that affect, say, the dominant group, which is presumably men or white people, or straight people, or cisgender people, whatever the case may be. And not have a situation where those ideas are interpreted as being they're just inherently reactionary. Let me just put it like that. And there's no getting around it. And when you try to make them progressive, you're defeating the point, because progress does not belong to men, for example. Equality does not really belong to men. The whole idea of equality is trying to make people who are presumed to be of low status up to those who are of high status. Thus, the idea of men or white people, or straight people, cisgender people forming movements to deal with their particular issues would be to prop them up at the expense of lower people, making the lower people, quote unquote, not that they are the lower people, but it would be the people who are presumed to be of low status, more lower status than they are. It'd be like the rich people forming their own labor unions or something, employers forming their own labor unions. That would, and lobbying for their own interests, that would effectively make them wealthier, give them higher status at the expense of people of lower status. And that's the whole idea behind equality. So you never will get anywhere looking at that. So I've given up on the idea that there can be a progressive or revolutionary aspect to these sorts of ideas. But the MGTOW perspective is one that is a revolutionary one, presumably. It's one in which it's trying to encourage male liberation, but it's trying to do this in a way that really shows men the whole truth of their own existence. And I admire this desire, this aspiration of the MGTOW movement, but it will always inherently, I think, fail in the long run, because it does not take into account that nobody's ever going to believe your perspectives. It doesn't matter if you're right; you don't hold the power, and you don't hold the area where you can promote your discourse. I remember I was thinking for myself, the solution to defeating feminism was really to retake academia. And I still believe that, because a lot of these ideas occur within academia. They are promoted within academia. The feminists have captured academia. Also, probably another side of defeating feminism would be to try to separate themselves from other social justice oriented movements, to point out that in fact women are probably on some level, to one degree or another, the most privileged segment of the population, by virtue of the fact that they produce life. Gives them an incredible amount of privilege. They pretty much can get things handed to them for nothing. And this is probably been going on for a very long time. And thus feminism is really a perpetual privilege movement, not a movement of social progress or equality. And trying to point out the simple reality that race and gender are not the same thing. For example, that they're not the same thing. Races are two different tribes. Like you said in one of your videos, it's apples and oranges. That people don't seem to understand this, and breaking this was also a part of defeating feminism. But as I look at it, I think you're fighting an uphill battle when you're trying to defeat this movement and get anything done. You're fighting an uphill battle that is something that just cannot be achieved. So as a man, you will always be in a stuck position in this regard, trying to fight for your dignity, your rights. So you might as well just say fuck it and go with the reactionary perspective, which was what I've done recently. That's pretty much why I distanced myself from it in my other videos, where I did like almost 2 or 3 different videos in a row where I was attempting to distance myself from it. This is because I just said fuck it and decided to take the more reactionary path myself, personally. Just to kind of, I think, wrap up this video, because as to get back to what you were saying in your videos about men not being able to change, and saying, for example, things like marriage. Like I remember in one of your videos you said that women have a passing interest in marriage. These are another issues that MGTOWs miss, because in truth, in the real truth of it, women are very much interested in marriage, and I would say that women are far more interested in marriage than men are. And man in his natural form, the human male in his natural primordial form, is a freedom lover, is a natural individualist. Many species, from my understanding of, the male sex in general, regardless of the species, has an instinct for that. I think when you look at other species, many times the male's only reproductive only thing he offers is he has sex, he engages in the reproductive the thing, and then he goes off and lives the rest of his life in a solitary existence. And men males rather, are the most solitary sex of whatever species they are in, it seems to me, to one degree or another. Except for, and I'm just simplifying there. You have to forgive me. I'm doing this off the cuff, but I'm simplifying, and it's not a perfect analogy, or not a perfect it's not a perfect analogy, or not a perfect complete analyst. But I think the male in his natural form is that. And this idea, for example, that men are disposable, I don't believe is true at all. I think men are the species, not the species, but men are the sex, rather, excuse me. Men are the sex that is the one that has an interest or is geared for things other than that go beyond the species. I think men, for example, men's interest in things like science or mechanics or engineering, it's all things that are beyond or separate from the species, whereas women seem to have more of an interest in human affairs. This is why women always seem to take the humanities as opposed to the hard sciences, why you don't find them in the hard sciences or math. Men are fascinated by things that are higher than themselves, that are above themselves. Men's imagination is in the sky, so to speak, to such an extent that he misses out a little bit on his own personal relations, I think. This is why I think the perception that, for example, women are more down to earth, because on some level women are more down to earth than men. Men have big egos, big ambitions, big desires, and women don't understand these things to such an extent that they kind of put them down a little bit. I think a lot of women don't appreciate male ambition, and in this culture, it's considered to be a liability. It's considered to be wrong. It's made fun of. It's mocked. If you want to have bigger ideas, or you want to pursue something bigger than yourself, you're mocked for it. So having ambition is considered a bad thing in this culture, I think, to one degree or another. So all of these things, I think all this is a product of modernity, product of the leisure of modernity. You can only ever make the claim about women and progress, the end of men type perspective in a society of modernity. But they bring up the end of men thing. Like again, I don't think men need to hear how men are fossils. I think maybe you did this video out of frustration. I don't know. I guess I can understand. But just as to wrap up, to really wrap up, what I believe that men need is not to begin to examine themselves, but to begin to examine the human female. I think men don't understand women. I think men have a hard time. It's just a strange situation because I think it's hard for men. It's hard for men to understand women, but often because I don't think men take the time out to understand women, and to actually analyze the human female the way he would analyze a habitat, or the way he'd analyze a problem in some other area of his life. And so men have to, I think, do this. I think we should spend our time, our brains, in really trying to figure out women, analyzing women, studying their subcultures, their groups, their whatever, and delving into the feminine a little bit more. Not in ourselves, mind you, but trying to understand this thing that we don't understand about them, because there is an extent to which they build up this mystery about themselves to such an extent that I think it scares men away, because the idea is that they're less manly for it, which is probably something made up by women in order to protect their own territories. I think that's my own opinion, and I'll talk about that maybe a different video. But again, men don't need to hear any more end of men type perspectives, which I think is what you were saying in your video. Not that you agreed with that, but you seem to reinforce the end of men view, that men are fossils. But the solutions, really, I think, to men's problems is not to analyze themselves, but to concentrate on getting to understand the human female. When men really unwrap the feminine mystique and completely obliterate it, and not, in the way that you're doing, which it's not wrong per se, but I don't think women see. Excuse me. I don't think women see the relationships with men as a business arrangement. I think that's an exaggeration. I think women are far more interested in romance, and even sex. I don't think men are defined by their biology, whereas women, I think, are defined by their biology and all the things connected with that. They have an interest in those things, and I think there are certain things that men miss. And if men learn to understand these things more, they'd be equipped to go out and deal with women. And when men finally unraveled the feminine mystique and got inside their minds and figured them the hell out, women's games and bullshit would be completely over. If men could do that, feminism would die overnight. Women's whatever manipulations or what have you, shit test, it would all be over. Overnight, it would end. And I think they probably know that, which is why they guard their territory with such viciousness, and don't want you involved in them. They know that. I really think they made up that nonsense about how, well, if you get into our little areas, you're less of a man, or you wear pink, you're less of a man. Something like, stuff like that. I think they made that up in order to guard their territory, their emotional territory. I think they're emotionally territorial, whereas men are more physically territorial. But I've been talking for about 20 minutes, and so I think I'm going to end this video here. And it seems like a pretty good take, so I think I'm going to use this one for the video. And anyway, Stardusk, appreciate your videos, and to all of you out there, I'll talk to you later. Bye.